Samuel Sattin joins us next to talk about Unico Awakening. It's the first book in a new series of graphic novels in the Manga Art Form intended for middle-grade readers from Scholastic. Hi, I'm Dan Skinner, and welcome to the Kids Bookshelf. Ahead, we'll explore the book and talk with the author about the inspiration behind it. Samuel Sattin is an American writer whose books include Buzzing, Side Quests, and The Silent End. He co-authored A Kid's Guide to Anime and Manga and The Essential Anime Guide, 50 Iconic Films, Standout Series, and Cult Masterpieces. And he joins us to talk about Unico Awakening. Samuel, welcome to the Kids Bookshelf.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, let's talk about this book, Unico. You've taken this character, which actually was originated by someone else, and brought it to life again in this latest graphic novel. So tell us about the original Unico and its creator.
Yeah, sure. So Unico was created by Osamu Tezuka, who's known as the god of manga, both in Japan and abroad. He is kind of responsible for the creation of the entire manga and anime industry, which is, as you might, as many of your listeners may know, is incredibly popular today, probably with either you or your kids, etc. And he was the one who started the entire process. And he created Unico in 1976 on a trip to Los Angeles that he took. And he created it for Sanrio, actually, in partnership with Sanrio, as a way to reach what he hoped at the time would be American readers. And so, so he actually tried to publish it in a way that would be read from left to right instead of right to left. And he published it in full color, which is also kind of unusual for manga. And he was a little bit ahead of his time, I think, in 1976, because, today manga and anime are incredibly popular mediums and everybody loves it. But, in the 70s, I don't think people were quite ready for it yet. So, the character itself of Unico is basically was created as a character who, his main superpower is to spread love and kindness and hope and things like that. And doing so attracts the ire of a vengeful goddess, the goddess Venus, who becomes jealous of his power to inspire humanity. And because of that, tries to have him destroyed, essentially, by having one of his servants abandon him on what's called the Hill of Forgetfulness. And so he'll just kind of like forget who he is and end up kind of wandering for eternity. And her servant, the West Wind, takes pity on him and decides instead to hide him through space and time. And she has to wipe his memory, though, because whenever he remembers who he is, his powers will awaken, and he draws the eye of the goddess again. So it's kind of a story about a character who, is always going through time and helping people and helping, his new friends, only to forget again his good deeds and have to do it again in order to escape this this vengeful goddess. And so that's kind of the story of Unico, and from the 70s in the time he was created.
So, from what I understand, manga is in Japan really popular with all ages, but here in the United States is for some reason been older readers who've been attracted to it. So this, as I understand it, is an attempt to try to bring manga to a younger audience.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. It's actually interesting because now in the United States, because you're right, historically it was for older, readers got really into manga and anime, but now a lot of younger readers really are getting drawn towards it as well. So if you go into a Barnes and Noble, you see a bunch of like teens kind of on the ground, sitting on the ground reading manga and the manga, they're gigantic manga sections. And, but the issue is, as you said, is like, if you talk to librarians, they'll say like, well, we have 8-year-olds, 9-year-olds who are always asking to read manga. They want it. but we can't send them home with something that's going to be, again, their parents might look at it and be like, why are you why are you giving this to my children? It's too violent, or it's too suggestive, or what it happens to be, because it draws the eye so much, and it's so popular that you want to be careful. So yeah, this is an attempt to you know provide that kind of larger kind of meatier story that has all the hallmarks of manga for an 8 to 12 year old audience. So for a younger audience, so that it is, a younger audience is able to read it without any kind of fear of crossing any overly suggestive or overly violent material.
So it's age appropriate
Yeah,
for 8 to 12 years old, but I imagine that adults could also read it.
100%. Yeah, we have a lot of people so far, a lot of adults who are really big fans. It's a real it's a story for everybody. And despite the cuteness of the character, it's a larger adventure story that's going to go on for multiple volumes.
I'm talking with Samuel Sattin about Unico Awakening, and our conversation continues. If you're enjoying this discussion, please take a moment to subscribe, like, and hit the bell so you know when I post new interviews. And thank you. As you point out, it looks like it's just this cute character, but there are actually layers to this story that one could look at. What does this really mean, and what are the implications and the themes that it explores?
It's about a character who is attempting to find out who he is and who he used to be. He's been kind of battered around by these cosmic forces, and he's trying. And so it's a story about memory. It's a story about the nature of beauty, how beauty and love can be both a double-edged sword and cut in two directions. Um, it is also about it's about identity, and trying to hold to who you are, and the, it's a larger story than it's a more thematically complex story, I think, than one might assume from looking at it. It's not My Little Pony. It's something far more developed than that. It's also epic in scale. It has we have a larger character arc going on in the background. It's going to go on for multiple volumes, and it has to do with, in particular, there are some, you know, there are some larger enemies and kind of obstacles for Unico to overcome throughout the series.
I'm curious about the manga art form itself. What are sort of the characteristics of that art form that set it apart? So a person would recognize this as manga as opposed to just some other sort of graphic novel.
Yeah, that's a great question. So one of the things is basically, well, manga is the Japanese word for comics, essentially. So when we think about manga, what we're really thinking about are comics that come out or originate from Japan. So there's a lot of stylistic elements. There are some storytelling elements. There are some, design conventions, things like that. Um, but the one thing and so the reason why this is, a manga is because we collaborate with a larger Japanese team. So, for example, the artist team, who are my co-creators in the series and my collaborators, their name is Gurihiru. They are located outside of Tokyo in a place called Saitama. They're absolutely and totally brilliant, and we work together with them and with Tezuka Productions, which is the company that's the namesake of Osamu Tezuka. So it's kind of more than just kind of taking a story and our character and kind of reinventing it within the American context or Western context. This is a truly, collaborative project in which we are, you know, um, where we are really, it's cross cultural, and we are really trying to honor the original material and the way in which that material is created. So that's kind of the way in which we look at this as manga, because that's really all it means. It just means kind of there's stylistic elements for sure, but it is uh, essentially comics that are heavily inspired or come out of Japan.
And for those who may not be familiar with the term, as I understand it, manga is, printed where anime is animated.
That's absolutely right. Yeah, manga. It means basically the direct translation is kind of like whimsical images or whimsical pictures. And anime is a portmanteau for Japanese portmanteau for animation.
So this has been a labor of love for you. Mm-hmm. This is a project that you had to look to crowdsourcing to help make happen. Tell us about that.
Basically, in 2019, I was afforded the ability to give an open pitch to Tezuka Productions for one of their characters. I wasn't, sure what character to choose, but I was a huge fan of Tezuka and had been for a very long time. His work inspires me unlike any other. And so they told me that they had been looking for a long while to do something with the character Unico. And so I went back and reread the book and I watched the films and I decided to go ahead and provide a pitch for the character that could be, I thought it was such an important story that just needed to be retold for a new generation of readers. So I went and pitched the story, and to my great shock, they accepted the pitch. And it was from there we decided, okay, now we have this. Now we have this thing that we can do, and oh my God, it's incredible. How are we going to bring it to the world? And my idea was, my thought was at the time was that, well, we could bring it to publishers, directly to publishers, and try to, get somebody to put it out there. But I thought that in order for it to really have a full effect upon the world, it had to be kind of seen in order to be believed. It had to be shown just how much. First of all, so many people were love this character and want this character to come back, and second of all, just how interesting the story was. Because I was thinking a lot of publishers would look at it and be like, oh, it's cute, it's like My Little Pony, but why? So then when we put together the Kickstarter, we got other artists involved from a variety of backgrounds, mostly out of Japan, to do artist prints and things like that. And we did a Kickstarter, and it was successful. And from there, my agent pitched after we had funded the Kickstarter, my agent pitched the story out, and we thought maybe we'll get the book published somewhere, on the shelves. And to our great amazement, Scholastic decided they were going to they saw eye to eye with our vision, and they gave us a larger series deal to work with, and made our dreams come true. So from there, it's been incredible.
And now that Scholastic has picked you up, as you mentioned, there will be more adventures with Unico. So what's next?
So Unico Hunted comes out in June of 2025. And though I won't give away too much, I'll say that Unico wakes up in a strange, nearly abandoned city run by an entity that is not human, but thinks it is, and thinks it is the mother to a young girl in the city who needs a lot of help. And thankfully, Unico is going to be there to try to do so.
The book is Unico Awakening by Samuel Sattin. It's the first in a series of books that'll feature the character Unico. Samuel, thank you for talking with me today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been lovely.
If you'd like to purchase Unico Awakening, I've placed a link for you in the description below. There are many more interviews for you to discover on the kids' bookshelf, so I hope you'll visit it. Here are links to 2 more of the many interviews you'll find there. I'm Dan Skinner. Until next time, keep sharing the gift of reading.